Hello and welcome to today's Trader Talk with ExchangeWire. I'm absolutely thrilled to be joined by Charlie Johnson today. Charlie, welcome.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
You're always welcome in the ExchangeWire office. And today we're going to talk about geolocation and LocID, a solution from your company. So to start with, tell us a little bit about you, Digital Element, what's going on?
Absolutely, no problem. Well, we are here at Digital Envoy, look after IP addresses, and we have several different brand names, which gets super confusing. I kind of like to think we're a bit bipolar on this side of things, but a lot of people know us as Digital Element as well. We've been working in the ad tech industry, fintech, cyber, digital rights management. Yes, when you can't watch your Netflix, it might be my fault, but we're doing it on purpose. Stop using a VPN. And we look at everything around IP addresses. And our latest and greatest is handling the fun topic of IPs being volatile.
Amazing. Well, yeah, there's lots to get into there. And yeah, thank you for giving us your multiple company titles. I think we're clear on that one now. Let's start with the challenges. Tell me what's going on in the industry, what's going wrong in the industry for IP addresses and geolocation. Tell us a little bit about the challenges you're facing.
Absolutely. I wouldn't say anything has changed per se. It's more a sort of moment of discovery. I think if you talk to most people, veterans in the industry, they'll always say IPs are not 100% science. We've always known that, and that's always been the case. However, now we're looking at more and more of IPs being one of the core signals that a lot of additional data is being pinged against and being used against. So if IPs are not in the right place, then what are we going to do, right? This is the challenge of it. And a couple of years ago, we were asked to look into this. And when we look at our cybersecurity product, this was a moment when we discovered that actually IP addresses are a little bit more volatile, or sometimes we use the words IP drift, than we perhaps first thought. Do you want to have a guess how many times an IP address might change?
I wouldn't even know where to start, to be honest, in terms of what in a ballpark. Tell me you've
not thought about it. You do surprise me, John.
Well,
yeah, it is a change. So there's not too much change country by country. It's kind of standard across them, but well over 40% of IP addresses will change on a monthly basis.
Really?
And that can be extremely frequent, even down to a daily or weekly basis, all the way up to a little bit further. But is it helpful for me to show you guys where the problem is?
Please, take a pen and
take a pen.
Fire away.
So we're thinking about this very much from CTV, but it's not a unique problem to CTV. It's very much when anybody's using the IP address as one of the core signals that they're looking to connect. But in CTV, that's one of the big ones, right?
Yeah.
So we've got two different areas, right? So we've got over here, the actual CTV publisher, right? And they might have their own ID, but this is the folks with the actual inventory that are sitting there. On this side of things, we're going to have some form of segment, and we're all pretty used to creating a segment audience kind of related ID, right?
Yeah.
That's not news to anybody that's here. The main thing is that these are often built out of a physical address. My spelling is dreadful, not as bad as my handwriting, but that's also bad.
Correct.
So we've got some form we've got some form of physical address that's pinning under us. So how the industry works at the moment is we're taking these audience segments and we're relating them to this publisher ID that's sitting there. And to do this, we have to use an IP address, right?
Yeah.
That's cool. And there are different segments that we might have come into it. So perhaps it's, I'm never going to spell demographic, but maybe it's demographic information that's in there. Maybe it's the context information that's being pinged off of there. There's all kinds of different sorts of information that we're putting out there. And especially now that we're bridging together offline and online, it's super exciting.
Yeah.
And then this is the area where at the end, this is the expectation from the advertiser, right? I have selected my audience. I want to target it against this CTV and sitting there. All makes sense. You understand this flow? This is how it works today.
Absolutely.
Right? Where it all goes wrong is at the IP address level. Okay. Let me explain a little bit more detail about how. So if we're starting with the physical address, so we're taking, let's say a postal code level data, it's rarely, although we can get down to a household, it's rarely looking at it, the sort of that level of granularity. There might be a geo cohort that's sitting there, but there's some sort of polygon shaping of a physical level. That audience segment gets built, we're pulling in the demographic information, we're pulling in all this context information, audience segment, all the different information that we'll get in there. And as we pull all of that together, we then have to take that offline physical address and match it to an IP address, right? Perfect. Let's say this is done in real time using that IP that would sit in there. Everything's working so far. However, that IP address is moving. If the IP address moves, this bit is starting to break down because the segment has not changed. It's still being pinned next to that IP address. So across a single campaign, an IP can change, like let's say it's a 4-week campaign, can easily change 3, 6, 8 times. The physical address hasn't changed. The segment that's being generated hasn't changed. The publisher delivering the content hasn't changed. But if the IP has moved, you're now delivering it to a different household, to the one you thought of. Because that IP address might no longer be in South London. It might now be all the way up in Leeds. And it can be quite far away. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so interesting.
Good. That's the idea.
Yeah.
So this is the state of how things are happening at the moment. And we see it represented quite often when somebody's coming back saying, everybody's using Digital Envoy's data, how come you're all delivering in different geos? Because this is where we had that sort of light bulb moment of going, it's all about the time sequence. And so that's where LocIDs come in from, and we're starting to think about things a little bit differently.
Excellent. What's causing this IP volatility to start with? Just want to dig into that a little bit. Why are these changes happening?
That is a great question for many, many different reasons. There are the simple ones. You know, when you go at home and you turn your router off, right? You might be assigned a new IP address then, right? So it could be as simple as that. It could be being done at the ISP level, and they might be doing it for many different reasons. For example, they might be thinking about it from a privacy point of view. So they might be frequently cycling it because they don't want to be tracked around the internet, shocker. But then there's the other piece, which not as many people know. In IP addresses, and I'm sorry, I'm going to geek out for a second.
Not at all.
There are 2 types of IP addresses in circulation at the moment. So you've got IPv4 and IPv6. V4 runs in the format that you guys will probably be more used to. So .24, I'm just making up an IP, somebody will look it up. So we've got the 4 different octets, as we would call it.
Yeah.
The key one that allows us to help understand exactly where it's located down to a physical location is this very last one, right? The rest of it is part of a range. Now, what's happened is we have run out in a world capacity of these. There's just over 4 billion of IPv4s, and you could do the maths around the world and how many of us are now internet enabled. We've run out. So they're constantly being recycled. And there's actually a couple of registries whose job it is to assign batch loads of these to the ISP. So you've turned off your router, your IP address might have gone back, somebody's lifted it up and sent it to Brazil. It's an extreme example, but that actually does happen, and so that's why they're changing. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I mean, this is fascinating stuff. This is kind of the ad problem that I imagine a lot of people don't know about, but this is like, you know, this is affecting a lot of ad targeting, and this is where your solution comes in. I'm going to pass you the board wiper, and then
absolutely fantastic. This is going to test how good I am. Like, no, not very good. Oh my goodness, need to get down to the gym to make that a bit clearer. So this is exactly where we've started to think about it. So a couple of years ago, like I mentioned earlier, we were asked to think about this problem. And a lot of people were coming to us and saying, why is it that this is just not working? Yeah. Help us walk through this. What we do over on our side is we see IP addresses at a device level. And that allows us to watch the change as they're moving forward, taking out that geolocation. So we have a lot of algorithms. We are location experts to understand it. So it took people significantly smarter than me to sit around and think, what are we doing wrong? And the key here is we've always been thinking about it as the IP as the start. Well, what if we turn that around and think about it differently and look at it as the location as the start? Because buildings don't move. When was the last time you walked out of your house with a TV on the shoulder, right? Yeah. It's just not happening, right? We just don't do that. Maybe when you move, and that does happen, but not that often, right? So we just don't do that. The physical location remains pretty stable, and that's the way of thinking about it. So let's give a UK example, right, of looking at this. This is a recent case study that we did looking at the IP address movement that's going there. It was a campaign that started running in Guildford, and it was a specific target audience in Guildford. Within 1 week of the campaign running, over 22% of those IP addresses were running outside of Guildford, and not even just like nearby. They'd gone London, Norfolk, I think they'd gone as far as Scotland within 1 week. So that's the problem. Yeah. Those houses that were segmented to, they haven't moved. The cement's not got up and walked away, right? So this is where LocID comes in and where we're thinking about it differently. If the house doesn't move, bear with me. My drawing is terrible. So we have two different versions, right, as we come along with this. This is your home. Both of these are staying exactly the same and they're not moving. In the current system, you have date 1. Pick a date from a few months ago, just make it easy for me.
9th of May.
9th of May. I had an 8th of May in my head. I don't know why. That's weird. Okay, so 9th of May is when you've started that campaign. The IP address has changed. Let's say it's taken a few weeks before it's changed and it's not changed until, I don't know, let's go the 29th of May, right? So almost 3 weeks. But then it's changed again on the 3rd of June, right? And then it's changed yet again on the, I don't know, 8th of June. And then let's give it a little bit more stability for a while and say it's made it to the 10th of July, right? So in that time frame, we have gone through, that one household has gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different IP addresses, right? If we stop thinking about the IP and we stabilize the house and we assign this what we would call our LocID, which would be unique, so XYZ, all independently done along that side. You've got the same time period, right? So you're starting on the 9th of May and we're finishing on the 10th of July, right? Exactly the same. Instead of targeting the IP, you target the LocID. What we're doing in the background is managing the change of those IP addresses, right? So we're no longer thinking about targeting an IP, and instead we're thinking about targeting a stable, persistent ID over time in the format of the LocID. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, really interesting. And so what's the benefits of this? How is this helping the user of LocID?
Yeah, I think there's a variety of different ways. The main one is thinking about it from a measurement point of view, right? So when people are coming in and measuring, I don't think it's healthy to start thinking about it as a blame area or if somebody's doing anything wrong in the ecosystem. This is how the ecosystem has been built. But when everybody's measuring against a different time sequence, people are getting penalized for this, right? They're losing revenue, all the way down to the advertisers having their dollars being spent out of the segments that they wanted, whether that be, you know, at a geo level, a geo cohort level, or also the other audience segments, even outside of a geo, they also build into it, all the way through to whether it's the publisher who's then having to give clawbacks, right? So if we get rid of that problem and we're all measuring over the same time, we're actually making things make sense. But the other piece to not forget is this is also about the user experience, right? So, I mean, this example relates quite a bit more, but let's talk about like the cricket, right? And if you're wanting to see advertising related around the cricket, you're going to maybe target that a little bit more related to the area that it's in. Yorkshire, you know, is absolutely going to be different from other areas of how you want to target and the sort of advertising that you want to be. Let's think about the user's experience, right? We see the same when we see stadium blackouts, etc. So we start thinking about making the user's experience so they're not bombarded with irrelevant ads that they don't want. And we all want a better experience when we're watching the telly, right?
Yeah, completely. You know, you don't like, you know, if your IP address was in your house in Hertfordshire, for example, and all of a sudden it's in Leeds and you're geo-targeting a Hertfordshire person with Leeds content, then it's
not going to go down well.
No, and irrelevant and useless to the advertiser, irrelevant to the user, and it's, stuff like this is, it's going to help that. This is really interesting, the kind of attaching it to the building rather than the IP.
It's the same concept. IP still needs to be the main core signal, and especially in CTV, because the IP is ubiquitous for being able to use it. But if it's such a dodgy, caffeinated squirrel running around the place all the time, I couldn't help myself, but running around all the time, like, how are you meant to pin it down? Let's just change it on its head and think about it at its core, which is the house and the physical level.
Rethinking the basics. That's brilliant, Charlie. Thank you so much for your time today. It's like I say, it's a hidden problem of ad tech, and from your time at ATS Singapore, you're always shining a light on this stuff. So thank you for coming in today, and thank you for showing us LocID. Pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
No worries, and thank you all very much for watching.